My parents called my new $6 million ocean villa gaudy and refused to come to my housewarming. They chose to help my brother move instead. So, I invited every high society friend they've ever tried to impress, and I made sure they'd never forget the day they snubbed their daughter. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The phone felt cold against my ear, a stark contrast to the warm, salt-tinged breeze blowing through my new living room. I was sitting on a packing box, surrounded by a sea of white marble and floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out onto the Pacific Ocean. This house, this $6 million monument to my own hard work, was supposed to be the moment everything changed. It was supposed to be the moment they finally saw me. A housewarming. My mother, Margaret, repeated the word as if it were a strange, distasteful insect. Yes, Mom, this Saturday, I wanted to. Well, I wanted you and Dad to be the first ones I officially invited. My voice was smaller than I wanted, a pathetic echo of the 38-year-old CEO who had just successfully navigated a seven-figure acquisition. There was a sigh, a sound I had known my entire life. It was the sound of my disappointment. Elena, really? Saturday is impossible. We're helping David move. I blinked, the ocean blurring in front of me. David is moving? Again? I thought you just got him settled in that downtown loft. He doesn't like it, she snapped, her defensiveness immediate. It's too loud and it's stifling his creativity. This new place has a wonderful studio space and he needs help. Your father and I will be busy all weekend. Busy, I repeated, the word tasting like ash. Mom, he's 35 years old. I'm sure he can hire movers. I can. It's not about hiring movers, Elena. It's about family support. Something you wouldn't understand, always busy with your projects. She then delivered the final blow. Besides, Arthur and I find the idea of that gaudy glass box on the beach to be a complete waste. Money you should be giving to your brother to help him get started. The line went quiet, but the message was deafening. My brother's imaginary creativity was worth a weekend. My life's greatest achievement was gaudy. The betrayal was sharper than any boardroom rejection I had ever faced. I ended the call without really saying goodbye. The silence of the vast, empty house rushed in to fill the space my mother's voice had occupied. For a long time, I just sat there on that box, watching a pelican dive into the waves. My entire life, I had been running a race, thinking that if I just ran far enough, fast enough, and brought back a big enough trophy, they would finally look at me instead of at my brother, David. David, the golden child. The artist without any art. The 35-year-old man-child who still lived on our parents' dime while I was building a tech company from my dorm room. I had paid off their mortgage, funded their retirement, and even bankrolled the gallery showing for David that consisted of 3 blurry photographs and a lot of free cheese. I picked up my phone again and dialed my father. Maybe he would be the voice of reason. It went straight to voicemail. Of course, it did. Arthur always let Margaret do the talking. I walked out onto the terrace, the smooth stone cool under my bare feet. The house wasn't gaudy. It was beautiful. It was steel and glass and light, built on a foundation of sleepless nights, broken contracts, and a relentless, burning desire to prove I was worth something. A text message vibrated on the screen. It was from my father. Listen to your mother, Elena. We're busy. Don't be selfish. Selfish, the word they used whenever I asked for anything, from a ride home from soccer practice to a moment of their time. The old, familiar sting of tears pricked at my eyes, but I pushed it down. A cold, hard resolve was setting in. I looked at the list of caterers and florists on my tablet. I had planned a quiet, tasteful family event, but they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. If I could build an empire from nothing, I could certainly throw a party. And if they wouldn't come, I would just have to invite everyone else. My family was built on a strange, unspoken caste system. My parents, Margaret and Arthur, were at the top, clinging to a fading sense of old money prestige they hadn't personally earned. My brother David was the crown prince, the fragile artist whose potential was their life's work. And I was the worker bee, the practical, nerdy daughter. I remembered being 12 and fixing the router, while David was praised for painting a lopsided flower on the kitchen wall. I remembered paying for my own college tuition with scholarships and 3 jobs, while they co-signed a loan for Vid's exploratory art trip to Europe, from which he returned with nothing but a new girlfriend and a stack of credit card debt. My sacrifices were expected, his were celebrated. My mother was the architect of this dynamic. Margaret was a woman who lived for appearances. She was obsessed with the local social register, the garden club, and what the neighbors thought. Her greatest shame was that I, her daughter, had chosen a career in tech, a field she found unladylike and boring. She couldn't brag about my coding. She could, however, lament for hours about David's artistic soul. My father was her echo. Arthur was a quiet man who found it easier to agree with his wife than to form an opinion of his own. He was dismissive of my success because she was. This housewarming was supposed to be my olive branch, a $6 million olive branch. I had imagined my mother, for once, being proud. I had imagined her bragging to her friends, "My daughter, Elena, built this place." But her refusal and her reason was the final, devastating proof. My success wasn't just ignored, it was resented. It made David's failures all the more obvious. They didn't want to celebrate me. They wanted to hide me, lest my light expose the shadows they lived in. And I had had enough. I stood on my balcony, the selfish text message from my father still glowing on my phone screen. The hurt was a physical ache, but beneath it, something new was hardening. It was the same feeling I got right before a hostile takeover. It was resolve. "Okay," I whispered to the ocean. "You want to support David? Fine." My plan shifted. The clever trap wasn't a complex legal document or a secret recording. My leverage was my success. My trap was their own social ambition. They refused to come to my house, so I would bring everyone they ever wanted to impress to my house instead. I picked up my phone. The small, intimate family gathering was officially canceled. This was going to be an event. My first call was to Chloe, my best friend and the owner of the most influential art gallery in the city. "Chloe," I said, my voice firm, "the housewarming, it's on, and I need it to be the event of the season." "I thought it was just family," she asked. "Change of plans, the family isn't coming." There was a pause. "Elena, I am so sorry. What?" "It doesn't matter," I cut her off, pacing the marble floor. "What matters is that I have a budget, and it's suddenly unlimited. I want the caterer you used for the museum gala. I want that string quartet, and I want you to invite every artist, collector, and old money patron on your list." My next calls were to my own network: CEOs, venture capitalists, tech innovators. Then I opened my mother's digital Christmas card list, which she had proudly emailed me last year, so I could see who to send gifts to. I began cross-referencing. The head of the charity board, Margaret, was so desperate to join. Invited. The art critic who had once dismissed David's work. Invited. Every single member of the garden club, the golf club, and the historical society. I invited them all. I invited everyone who had ever heard Margaret sigh about her difficult daughter or her brilliant son. The trap was set. The night of the party, my home was transformed. The gaudy glass box was glowing, filled with soft light, music, and the scent of orchids and salty air. Valets lined the long, curving driveway. The string quartet played on the lawn, and the terrace was crowded with the most influential people in the state. I stood near the entrance, greeting guests. Chloe, looking stunning in a silver dress, squeezed my arm. "You did this, Elena," she whispered, gesturing around. "This is incredible." I smiled, my first genuine smile in days. The first wave of my parents' friends arrived. It was Mrs. Hemlock, the president of the garden club, a woman my mother worshipped. "Elena, darling," she gushed, kissing the air near my cheeks. "This house, it's simply divine. Margaret and Arthur must be bursting with pride. Where are they? I'm dying to congratulate them." I kept my smile perfectly in place. This was the first reveal. Oh, they couldn't make it, I said, my voice light and breezy. They're helping my brother David move again. I let the again hang in the air for just a second. Mrs. Hemlock's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up. They're moving him tonight instead of this. She looked around at the ocean view, the catered champagne, the CEO of the local bank chatting by the fireplace. The judgment in her eyes was palpable. This scene repeated itself a dozen times. Where are Margaret and Arthur? They must be so thrilled. Oh, they're busy with David. You know how he is. I was polite. I was gracious. I didn't say a single bad word about them. I didn't have to. With every person who asked, my parents' absence became a more glaring, more confusing, and more embarrassing hole in the center of the room. I let the whispers do work. By the end of the night, the entire upper echelon of my parents' social circle knew one thing. Elena's parents had skipped the party of the decade to go move their 35-year-old son's sofa. The confrontation was complete, and I had won without raising my voice. The fallout was immediate. The very next morning, my phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. My father. I let that go too. Then came the texts. Margaret, why is my phone ringing off the hook? Margaret, Mrs. Hemlock called. What did you tell her? Arthur, Elena, call your mother. You've embarrassed her. I sipped my coffee and watched the waves. I had hired a photographer for the party, and the photos were already being featured on several high society blogs. Tech titan Elena's oceanfront debut, one headline read. The pictures were beautiful. My house, my friends, my success, all on public display. And in every comment section, the same questions. Where were her parents? What a shame her family missed this. They were desperate, but I knew they wouldn't apologize. They didn't know how. Their strategy was always to double down. My phone rang again. This time it was my brother, David. I was curious, so I answered. What did you do? He hissed, no hello. Good morning to you too, David. How's the new studio? They're furious, he yelled. All their friends are calling, asking why they were at my place instead of yours. You made them look ridiculous. You made me look ridiculous. All I did was throw a party, David, I said calmly. The party you and Mom and Dad refused to come to. I'm sorry you feel ridiculous, but that's not really my problem. My guests, on the other hand, had a wonderful time. You did this on purpose, you, he sputtered, finally out of words. I have to go, David. I'm expecting a call from a reporter at Forbes. I hung up. The spell was broken. For years, I had been terrified of their disapproval, but now their disapproval was just noise. Their social humiliation was the irrefutable proof I needed. They didn't care about me, they cared about what people thought of them, and I had just taken control of that narrative. The case was built, and the stakes were simple. They had lost all power over me. 2 days later, the intercom at my front gate chimed. I was in my home office, on a conference call. I glanced at the security feed. A familiar, battered sedan was parked on the curb, my father's. Margaret, Arthur, and David stood clustered in front of the camera, looking impatient and angry. I put my call on mute. Yes, I said, my voice broadcasting coolly into the salty air. Elena, open the gate, it's us. My mother's voice snapped. I'm sorry, who is us? I asked, feigning confusion. It's your mother, and your father and brother. We've been standing out here for 5 minutes. Open this ridiculous gate. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm in the middle of a meeting, I said politely. Did we have an appointment? There was a stunned silence. I could see David step forward, his face red. An appointment? We're your family, just let us in. We need to talk to you about this mess you've made. I'm afraid I can't, I said, my voice perfectly even. My visiting hours are by appointment only, and to be honest, I took a deep breath, savoring the words. My guest list is currently full. I watched on the monitor as my mother's face turned from red to a pale, shocked white. My father, for the first time I could ever remember, looked utterly lost. David actually kicked the stone pillar like a child. Elena, my mother shrieked, her voice high and thin, You will not do this, after everything we've done for you. I agree, I said, my voice suddenly steely, the CEO back in charge. After everything you've done, I am doing this. You made it clear this house isn't for you. And you're right, it's not, it's for me. And it's for people who are happy for me. You are not on that list. I pressed the button to end the intercom call, cutting off my mother's next words. I unmuted my conference call. My apologies for the interruption, gentlemen. Now, about those quarterly projections. I watched them on the security feed for another minute. They stood there, defeated. David gesticulated wildly. My mother looked up at the house, this massive, beautiful thing she couldn't control, and I saw her for the first time as a small, powerless woman. My father just got in the car. Eventually, the other two followed. They drove away, and I have not heard from them since. The social fallout for them was, as Chloe later told me, absolute. Mrs. Hemlock and the garden club ladies now treated my mother with a polite, pitying chill. Her power, built on the illusion of a perfect family, had evaporated. David's artistic excuses were no longer charming. They were seen as what they were. The whining of a failed, entitled man. They weren't just embarrassed. They were, in the only world they cared about, exiled. As for me, I finally found peace. My $6 million villa wasn't a gaudy waste. It was my fortress. It was my sanctuary. It was, finally, home. I filled it not with people I was related to by blood, but with my chosen family. Friends like Chloe, my colleagues who had become mentors, the artists and thinkers who inspired me. That weekend, I hosted a small, quiet gathering, just Chloe and a few others. We sat on the terrace, drinking wine and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and violet. "So what's next?" Chloe asked, raising her glass. I looked out at the vast, endless ocean, a mirror of my own future. "I'm not sure," I smiled. "But for the first time in my life, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm just happy." I had finally stopped running. I was home,